The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the cultural aspects of food in Russia and how historically they have developed their food choices and habits. The people of Russia have had to deal with turmoil of many kinds in their country that influence their food choices and availability. Following the Civil War in 1922, the state system developed into what we know as the Soviet Union. In this socialist society, the government was in control of everything, including the grocery stores and restaurants, leaving the people without much choice in their food options. During this time, the country did focus on educating their people, and in result, Russia still maintains a 100% literacy rate. The religion of Russia consists mostly of the Russian Orthodox faith. Their faith does have an impact on the food choices, for under this religion they must follow fasting days and refrain from eating meat on particular occasions. Russia's geographical locations and crop availability also affect their food choices. For years they depended on imports from the European Union, and after a sanction was placed on imports from the West by their government in 2014, the country suffered. The culture of Russia is considered high context. They put a lot of emphasis on nonverbal communication and are aware of all the things happening around them. It's also important to note that they are a society that practices collectivism, meaning they put importance on the success of not just the individual but the entire group. Because of their geographical location, they learned from their eastern neighbors the art of traditional healing methods like acupuncture and cupping. In Russian cultures, they see the absence of pain as health. This causes them, unfortunately, to often miss diseases like cardiovascular or high blood pressure because there is no pain present. The country of Russia experiences very cold, harsh winters. Because of this, they've had to depend on foods that can withstand colder temperatures. Their main source of vegetables are potatoes, cabbage, turnips, beets, and onions. Their core foods that are present at every meal is a kind of bread. A Russian classic dark bread called rye is a traditional and favorite choice for most people. Before they began to import their spices, they relied on garlic, dill, and horseradish to flavor their foods. Typically, the Russian people follow a meal pattern that looks like this. They begin their day with morning coffee and breakfast first thing before work. Lunch occurs between 1 to 3 o'clock and is usually 2 to 4 courses. Dinner is equally as large and if not larger than lunch, consisting of 4 courses. Hot soup is served as an appetizer, and meat and potatoes and bread are combined in some way to make up the main hot dish. After dinner, before bed, they will have coffee or tea paired with a sweet treat like apple cake or a Russian classic, frosted cranberries. Like in any culture, Russians have a traditional meal for special occasions. During Butter Week, which we can compare to the United States Mardi Gras, Russians eat large amounts of a pancake known as belini. It's common to see belini paired with caviar. At New Year's, there's a special cookie known as payonki that symbolizes wishes for a sweet new year. On Easter, the women make decadent cakes meant to resemble the Orthodox Church. They dye their eggs red to represent the blood of Jesus, who under their religion died on the cross for their sins. Historically, Russian people had to get creative in order to keep food available during the harsh winters. They developed the art of canning. Because of these needs historically, Russian people have developed a taste for pickled and fermented products. Today, although they don't have to preserve food in the same way, we still see them eating larger quantities of pickled foods compared to other countries. Traditionally, Russians used large ovens to cook most of their meals. These ovens were multi-purpose, for they cooked their foods and provided heat in the wintertime. It is normal to see that ovens right in the middle of the home as somewhat of a centerpiece. These ovens provided a place to cook their traditional meals like roasted meats, vegetables, soups, and stews. Russian people have similar dining etiquettes to what we are used to here in the US. However, their culture puts emphasis on dinner parties in such a way that it is considered terribly rude to decline a dinner invitation. When a host invites someone to dinner, they cook an overabundance of food as to show prosperity. You should never leave your plate completely clear because that shows the host did not offer enough food. Much of the dynamic at dinner is to suggest that there is more than enough food and everyone should be full when they leave. It's tradition in Russia to toast with a shot of vodka between courses. Generally, everyone takes part in this practice, including the young kids. Historically, Russian people have been using food as medicine. Some of the most popular medicinal food items are lingonberry and garlic. Lingonberry has many healing properties, and garlic has been used since World War I when Russians used garlic on German soldiers as penicillin. Even after penicillin was available, they continued to use the garlic. This is how it got coined the nickname Russian penicillin. Today, Russia is dealing with somewhat of a health crisis. As you can see by the life expectancy chart to the left, the average male life expectancy in Russia is considerably lower than other countries. The rate of HIV is considerably high, as well as the rate of alcoholism. Their culture promotes smoking and drinking at a young age, and we see extreme rates of cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure in response. Some of these issues can influenced by nutritional changes. After my research, I came to see even aside from the high smoking rates, Russians are at risk for hypertension. There's high sodium content in most of the traditional Russian meals consumed. Their core and secondary foods like cabbage and potatoes don't have much flavor, so most people add a good amount of seasoning. This can lead to excess sodium intake. Also, Russians eat a lot of red meat because it's most readily available to them. These factors, in combination with drinking alcohol, can lead to hypertension and eventually cardiovascular disease. If working with a patient who comes from Russian culture, I can see it might be difficult to change their eating habits. However, I would suggest that a person be aware of their seasoning choices and try to aim for foods that can add flavor without using salt. Also, I would suggest reducing the red meat intake if possible and reducing alcohol consumption. For the Russian American immigrant, you can see a slight shift in food habits. Since here in the US we have less restriction on imports, we have fresh fruits and vegetables available year round. This offers more options for the Russian American immigrant than they are used to back at home. It will probably require some learning and practice to master the art of cooking with new ingredients, but most Russians are glad to see all the colorful fruits and veggies. Also, here in the US, we have a higher percentage of processed packaged convenience food. These act as an additional source of high sodium, and for the immigrant already dealing with hypertension, this could be possibly problematic. Ultimately, we can see how Russian culture has developed over time to influence the food choices and availability of the people. It is interesting to examine these cultural influences and compare them to the health status of a country, for I know I now have a better understanding of how food changes a country down to the health of each individual in it.